Should you use Unity or Godot? This is the big question of our day. I talked with the developer of Dolphin, Ben, aka DevDuck, and he told me exactly why he switched from Unity to Godot. And here's the thing. I still use Unity, yet I completely agreed with Ben's reasoning. In this clip from the full-length podcast, he and I break down exactly why Godot has a significant leg up on Unity. If you're a Unity dev right now, this episode might change your mind, or maybe you'll disagree. Let me know in the comments. And by the way, if you're making a mobile game, maybe it's similar to Dolphin or something much bigger, and you want to sell it directly on your own website, it's now possible with Xsolla. This is no longer a niche thing, it's becoming mainstream, which means devs can grow their revenue from live games. Even better, Apple has finally opened up the US market, making it legal to link out to a web shop and take direct payments for your mobile games, bypassing that 30% Apple fee. Xsolla has been doing this since the beginning, pioneering their web shop back in 2021. And now they have a new buy button solution that lets you drop an external purchase link right into your iOS game. Whether you're AAA or you're making a casual game or core, Xsolla has launched over 500 web shops and they know what works. From a fully custom web shop to maybe a no-code template and going live much faster, they've got you covered. Click the link below and you get access to the super simple, world-class, and easy to implement live ops and payment tools and add direct sales to your game. Why is Godot the answer?
Well, so I started out with Unity 7-8 years ago. I have two. I think they're still on the Apple App Store. I think Google kicked me off a while ago, but I have two small mobile games that I built with Unity.
What are those called?
Blink is the iOS version or the iOS game. They're both iOS games. Blink is the first one. Snow Pounce is the second one. These are very simple, mobile, kind of like hyper casual games, right?
Cool.
And, I'm super proud of those. I was happy to finish those up. This was kind of in a phase where I was thinking that my foray into game development could become more of a side hustle by working on kind of small, mobile, hyper casual type of things. Maybe there was like an ad in-app purchase, ad revenue play, which obviously there is, that's a thing. And, I kind of made those two games and I realized that just wasn't the type of game development I wanted to do, right? I'd been sitting on this idea for this grand RPG, following everyone's advice to start small, make Pong first and finish that. And so I was trying to do that with these two mobile games. But at some point I was like, this isn't like the full creative outlet that I need. It feels a little more like a chore or a job if I'm just like trying to crank out some like simple hyper casual ideas. So that all is to say that when I started down that path, I've had analysis paralysis for a long time, looking at different engines, trying to understand what I wanted to do. Even if I wanted an engine or if I wanted to like do mono game, like the Stardew Valley creator, right? Don't even have a visual kind of helper and just get in there and use frameworks and build this thing up.
Wow.
But Unity was a clear winner for like the mobile game space because it seemed like there were a lot of examples of mobile games made with Unity. They had really nice plugins for Google Ad Mob and all this stuff. So that ended up being the way that I went. And also just so much content out there about Unity. There's so much to help a new game developer learn. This was at one of the heights of Brackeys that probably, was just loving all that and taking all that stuff in. So that was a great place to start. When I shifted to the idea of building a bigger project for PC rather than mobile, that felt like an opportunity to reevaluate the tools I was using. I definitely have some gripes. Well, I should say had gripes with Unity because I really haven't touched it in a long time. I kept hearing about Godot being this up and coming open source. They're not going to make you have a splash screen at the front or anything. They're not going to take a piece of the pie if you're super successful. A couple things also really drew it to me. It's super small and lightweight. It's like 400 megs or something. Maybe I'm making that up, but it's pretty small.
It is very, very light. Dude, I've opened up Unreal. I'm sure you have too.
Yeah.
I opened up Unreal. I've opened up Unity and I've opened up Godot. Godot is like instant.
Oh, yeah.
It just appeared. Now, obviously, I was opening up a blank project, but even opening a blank project in Unity, my computer starts to take off and heat up. It's so weird. Unreal's worse. I don't know if it's just my experience, but Unreal, it's like so heavy. It is so heavy.
Well, the other thing for me too is like I knew that I wanted to stay in this, at least for now, this 2D kind of pixel art space. Excuse me, because that's just what I don't know. This a lot of the games that I like to play are kind of in that space. And it feels like the art was more approachable because I knew I wanted to be doing this all myself. And it's like I could probably figure out pixel art a little bit better than I can figure out Blender and things like that. And so Godot really stuck out because, I think one of the early selling points is that they have kind of like this dedicated 2D viewport rather than Unity lock in the Z-axis or whatever the implementation is on their side. So I actually made a video where I did like a small prototype in Godot just to try it out because I was learning the engine at the time and I really liked it. I think I ended up in the early days of Dolphin, I started it in Unity and, I made some minor progress, but I just kind of hit a breaking point with some of the things that I wasn't a huge fan of that engine for and decided to like give this Godot prototype a shot. And
what are those breaking points?
So this is about 5 years ago. I'll try to remember some of my bigger ones. I really hit some tough points getting Blink out the door in terms of keeping Unity up to date. And this is probably like a minor thing that, I don't know, maybe this is just me, but like it seemed like at least once a week, Unity was prompting me to update to the latest version, which is a multi-gigabyte download. It takes forever. And then things would break in my project like every time. And this is like a simple mobile game project. It's like, I really wanted to keep this up to date because I just, I don't know. I just wanted to have the newest features. I was already close to being up to date. Let's just try to make that effort. That drove me nuts.
Yeah. The trick to that is?
Never update it.
Don't update it. Yeah.
Yeah. It's a simple solution, I'm sure. Yeah.
No, but it's I'm being tongue in cheek. It sucks that that's true, but it is true. Like Twisted Tower, we're going to launch that game with Unity 2022. I'm not updating that thing. Everyone's like, update to Unity 6. Come on, Thomas, what are you doing? I'm like, the whole thing will explode if I do
Exactly, it will.
And even worse, I've done it. I did update to Unity 6. It's all the stuff on the surface looks fine. And then you try and play the full game, and there's like a billion small things that you're like, wait, what? How did that happen? Yeah. Why is that texture pink? What just happened? And it's all this little stuff that you could easily miss. You're spinning the chamber,
Yeah.
So I just keep it as is. And you're right, the update size downloads, the size of the update is huge. I'll say this. One of the issues with all these updates is you might get an update to one of the render pipelines and but the problem with all the render pipelines is there's 3 render pipelines, and then inside of each render pipeline is forward and then deferred, and then there's forward plus, and there's all these different quality settings. It's like nested rendering pipelines. I don't even know how to describe it. It is a mess. And is Godot that way? Does Godot have a bunch of different render pipelines? And
to my knowledge, no. I mean, I have a selector in the top right for forward plus, mobile, and compatibility. Those are my 3 options, and they're pretty clearly defined in the documentation what they do, and I'm pretty grateful for that. So,
but it's not really a 3D engine, is it?
So it has a Vulkan backend as of Godot 4. Like I said, I'm not much of a 3D person yet, but they're striving to kind of work towards that. They've got the Vulkan renderer now, and I think in Godot 4 as well, they did a bunch of work on like the global illumination system. Yeah. So they're working towards that. But what you said was that was going to be like my next point for Unity. It's like, and maybe you can tell me if this is just a few examples of this, but it always felt like there was more than one official way to do something. Am I wrong? Because like it's multiple rendering pipelines, it's multiple input managers. Like, I don't know.
When everything is official, nothing's official.
Right.
And you're absolutely right. It's so frustrating. And I'll be the first to admit, I will use Unity probably until it dies, because it's the same reason why like I drove stick shift for years. It's like I just knew how to do it. That's how I knew. That's just what I knew. And you just get used to it. But it is way too heavy. And to your point, everything has an official, and then they tell you stuff. I was just griping with David Whaley about this on Discord. It's like they say one thing, dynamic batching is the greatest thing ever, dynamic batching, and then you try and do it and it doesn't work at all. Yeah. The way it was explained, but sometimes it does work and sometimes it doesn't work.
Yeah.
And it's what it is it's just too complex. It's a bloated engine. So yes, that. I agree with you about the documentation or the official way to do things.
Yeah. So. I mean, yeah. And apart from all that, it's like I'm making simple little 2D games. There's just so much of Unity that I never touched. And that hit me every time I was downloading a multi-gigabyte update, right? It's like, I'm not using so much of this stuff. Like, can I simplify? And Godot's answer to that.
It reminds me of an infomercial where they're like, you get the spaghetti grate or the cheese grater, but you also get the what are we going to say here? Some random thing that is also for the attachment to spin it. And then you also get the backpack to store it in. And then you also get special sneakers with the cheese grater logo on it. It's like, I don't need any of this stuff. What am I paying for?
But wait, there's more. There's always more.
Wait, there's more. And everything is low value at that point, you know, including the main product itself. This is the problem with software is they can try to strip it down to bare bones and make it good again. But it's better to just start fresh because it's so hard to, it's like I've been working on this game Twisted Tower for almost 4 years now. I can't imagine stripping this thing down and cleaning up the project because it's just so like if I clean this up, it breaks this down here. And if I clean this up, it breaks this. And it's so hard to predict what's going to break when you clean stuff up. And I think the same is true with software.
That's funny you mentioned
so might as well
that.
just start over. Yeah.
Just thinking that if Unity is the newest version 6, you know, if they came out and said Unity 7, the cleanup patch, you know, we stripped a bunch of stuff out, I would have no interest. But if they said Unity 2.0 built from the ground up to be simple, I'd be interested. I'd look into it, right? I'd be curious.
That's called Godot. I mean,
here we are. You're right.
Yeah, it would be. I would not be surprised at all if in a year Unity's like Unity 2.0 is out. We are getting rid of prefabs. Everything is something called nodes. You know, it's like
Yep.
It's
here
Godot.
We go. Yep.
So what? Tell me about Godot. Like, what are some key differences between Godot and Unity?
I think, something that obviously comes to mind is GDScript, which I think is a good thing for some and a bad thing for others. You know, it's not a language that you use anywhere else like C#. You know, I've written C# for work. I've actually done Unity work at work, which is great. But, you know, you're not gonna take GDScript anywhere. At least it seems to me. Of course, it's kind of like Python. So I didn't find it to be a tough thing to learn.
I thought it was the most similar to C#.
No, it's pretty.
Really?
It's not very verbose. Yeah, we can look at some, obviously.
We will when we open it up. I'm surprised to hear that because I took a look at it and I could read it.
Well, so Godot supports C#. So maybe I don't know if you were looking at, you know, there's a .NET build of Godot that supports C# officially.
That's the problem. Okay, but it's not the official one.
Correct. Yeah. The language that really ships with the engine is GDScript.
Would you think that the C# is just as effective as the Godot script or GDScript?
When I first evaluated Godot 5+ years ago, I actually started with the mono or the .NET build because, you know, I'm come from Unity. I already know C#.
Yeah.
At that time, there was slightly less functionality with the C# stuff as they were trying to incorporate it. So it's like you couldn't export to mobile if you did C# and some things like that. So that's all been resolved now. Microsoft actually, I think, provided like a ton of grant money to the Godot, whatever the foundation is now, and helped with its implementation. So now I think it's caught up and all of my gripes with it are gone at this point. But I like GDScript. You know, it seems to work well in people think this is crazy, but I use the editor that's part of the engine. You know, I'm not using VS Code or anything right now, even though there's, you know, plenty of extensions and support for it, but it feels very tightly integrated into the scene tree and the node system and everything. I find it to be very intuitive. So it's actually a big plus point for me. I really like GDScript.
And by the way, if you're making a mobile game, maybe it's similar to Dolphin or something much bigger, and you want to sell it directly on your own website, it's now possible with Xsolla. This is no longer a niche thing. It's becoming mainstream, which means devs can grow the revenue from live games. Even better, Apple has finally opened up the US market making it legal to link out to a web shop and take direct payments for your mobile games, bypassing that 30% Apple fee. Xsolla has been doing this since the beginning, pioneering their web shop back in 2021. And now they have a new buy button solution that lets you drop an external purchase link right into your iOS game. Whether you're AAA or you're making a casual game or core, Xsolla has launched over 500 web shops and they know what works. From a fully custom web shop to maybe a no-code template and going live much faster, they've got you covered. Click the link below and you get access to the super simple, world-class, and easy to implement live ops and payment tools, and add direct sales to your game.